So one of the things that I found when I started to fly and I started to get stick time on the Lancair, and there was no real warning or training for this because nobody told me, so that's why I'm mentioning it now, was the approach speeds that you come into the airport. I've talked with a lot of aircraft pilots that are flying transport level category airplanes or citation jets, things like that, and I've had them in the Lancair, and I've told them about the approach speeds as well, and they all indicate, well, look, I fly jets, so I know about approach speeds. Well, they do know about approach speeds coming in, but that's in a large plane where your pattern and your the way you're performing in the landing is much wider spacing. You're usually on an instrument approach, so you're either flying vectors or you're flying within a box. So when you get to a Lancair and you come to approach the airport, you're coming in at 170, 160 knots. That approach is very fast, and these airports that we land at are pretty small. So that's the thing that I had to really spend the most time on, is getting used to that.
Wow.
The other thing that's interesting is when you get in the pattern, these planes, you get them down to 120 knots, and that's when you better be using your turns to make your final base turn to final, because that's where you're starting to get the plane. It's getting really mushy, and that's where your gear extend speeds are at as well. So when you come in, you're putting your gear down at probably 120 to 130 knots. You're starting to do your base turn at about 120 knots, and your final approach speed in the Lancair 4P is approaching about 100 knots. Now there's some people that say, hey, I come in at 90 knots for my final, but I keep it at 100. These planes usually stop flying at around 80 knots, and they go from flying great to not good at all, or they stop flying at the 80 knot level.